Come on, you Reds! Welcome back. And breathe. Just try to breathe. Because what we have just lived through was not a transfer deadline day. That was a psychological thriller, a high-stakes poker game, and a season-defining drama all rolled into 12 hours of pure, uncut chaos. Forget everything you thought you knew. Forget the plans, forget the whispers, forget the targets we've been hearing about for weeks. Tear it all up. What happened behind the closed doors of the city ground? It's a story that needs to be told properly. We are talking about a day that saw an unexpected departure, a player heading for the exit door so quickly it barely registered, leaving a hole in the squad and questions on everyone's lips. We are talking about the arrival of a world-class defender, a player with a champion's pedigree, signed out of the smoke and confusion in a move that nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming. But that's not even the main event. The real story, the secret story, is the deal that collapsed. The one that was supposed to happen, the one that fell apart at the very last second, triggering a frantic, desperate scramble that could have ended in utter disaster. And while all of that madness was unfolding, the club was quietly sanctioning its biggest financial investment of the summer, a massive multi-million-pound bet on the future of our attack. And finally, to make sense of it all, the man pulling the strings, the architect behind the chaos, has spoken, and his words paint a picture of exactly what this club is trying to become. So let me ask you this before we dive in. When the dust settles from a day like this, do you see a club that is dangerously chaotic? Or do you see a club that is brilliantly opportunistic? When the plan goes up in flames, what defines you more? The plan itself, or how you react in the fire? I want you to really think about that. This is a turning point. So before a single name is revealed, do two simple things for me. First, prove you're with us on this journey and hit that like button with everything you've got. And second, head to the comments and tell me in one word how that deadline day made you feel. I'll go first. Whiplash, your turn. Stay right there, because the first piece of this insane puzzle involves the goodbye we never saw coming. It's always the move you're not watching, isn't it? While our eyes were glued to the arrival screen, desperately refreshing for any hint of a new signing, the real action was happening at the departure gate. You can't build a squad without making tough decisions, but the timing and the nature of this one feels strange. It feels abrupt. We need to talk about the man who is no longer a Forest player. He was part of the squad, a known quantity, an attacking option, and now he's gone. Just like that. The player in question is, of course, Joe Da Silva. In a move that materialized and concluded with breathtaking speed, he has left Nottingham Forest to join Sporting Lisbon. It's a season-long loan, but make no mistake, this is likely a permanent farewell. The Portuguese club paid a reported €4.5 million loan fee and, crucially, hold a €15.5 million option to buy, which is a significant figure. This wasn't a player who had been publicly unsettled. There wasn't a long-running saga in the press. It was a clean, swift, and shocking exit right at the death. And this is where the indignation begins to bubble up for the fans. In a Premier League season, which is a war of attrition, squad depth isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. To voluntarily allow an attacking player to leave right before the window slams shut puts an enormous amount of pressure on the remaining forwards. One injury, one suspension, and suddenly we look thin. We look vulnerable. It feels like a gamble that didn't need to be taken. For the player himself, it's a return home and a reunion with a familiar face. The source material notes he will once again be playing under Rui Borges, the manager who coached him during his time at Vitória de Guimarães. That's a nice footnote, a bit of real-world context that shows the human side of these deals. But for us, the supporters, it leaves a bitter taste. It felt like a move made in haste, a piece being moved off the board for a reason we couldn't yet see. Was letting him go, especially on deadline day, the right call for the club? You have to tell me what you think in the comments right now. Was this a piece of smart, pragmatic business to free up wages? Or was it a needless risk that could come back to haunt us in January? But here's the thing. His departure wasn't just about squad management. It was a financial pin being pulled from a grenade. A space on the wage bill was being violently cleared because the club was about to enter a high-stakes game for a true defensive heavyweight. And the name that came next, it made the Joe Da Silva deal feel like a distant memory. So with a forward out, the logical next step is a forward in, correct? That's how normal clubs operate. But this is Nottingham Forest on deadline day. There is no logic. There's only adrenaline and ambition. The club didn't look to replace like for like. They pivoted. They identified the area of the pitch where we needed a real game-changing upgrade. And they went out and got a certified winner. A player whose trophy cabinet and big game experience dwarfs almost everyone else in our dressing room. The tension of that unexpected departure was immediately washed away by a tidal wave of pure, unadulterated shock. Brace yourselves. Alexander Zinchenko is a Nottingham Forest player. Say it again to let it sink in. A 4-time Premier League winner. A key component of Pep Guardiola's dominant Manchester City. A leader in the Arsenal side that pushed for the title. That player now wears the Garibaldi red. He arrives on a season-long loan. A deal that materialized from the shadows and stunned the footballing world. This is a signing of a club that refuses to just make up the numbers. Nuno had been clear about the need for quality at fullback, and in Zinchenko he gets so much more. He gets a player of supreme technical ability, an inverted fullback who can step into midfield and dictate play. He gets a leader, and he gets a mentality monster. Think about the micro stories that define a player. The source material reminds us of his memorable strike in Arsenal's incredible 4-2 comeback against Aston Villa in 2023. That's not just a goal. That's a moment of character, of refusing to be beaten. That is what we have signed. After making 91 appearances for a club the size of Arsenal, he slipped down their pecking order this season, and Forest were there to capitalize. A player of this caliber, with this experience, does he instantly become one of the most important voices in our dressing room? Does he have the potential to take the captain's armband one day? I genuinely want to hear your take on that. The excitement is electric, but, and with Forest, there's always a but. This masterstroke, this phenomenal signing that has every fan buzzing, it was a complete and utter accident. It was an act of desperation. It was plan B. And the story of how it happened, the story of the deal that had to die for this one to live, is where the real drama is, right? This is it. This is the part of the story that turns a good transfer window into a legendary one. This is the unfiltered chaos that we, as fans, live for. You need to understand that Alexander Zinchenko deal was never the plan. For hours on deadline day, the club's entire focus, all its energy and resources were pointed in a different direction. They had their man. The deal was structured. The move was progressing. We were on the verge of signing a different fullback entirely. That man was Javi Galán from Atletico Madrid. According to reports from the continent, a deal was in place for the 30-year-old Spaniard. He was set to be our marquee defensive signing. We were building our backline around him, and then it imploded. At the 11th hour, with the clock ticking relentlessly towards the deadline, the whole thing fell apart. It collapsed. The English sources are clear on this. The pursuit failed. The transfer was dead in the water. Now, just for a second, put yourself in that boardroom. Imagine the sheer heart-stopping panic. Your number one target is gone. The market is about to close. The entire world knows you need a fullback, and you've just failed to get him. The frustration must have been immense. This is the moment where seasons are defined. Lesser clubs would have panicked and signed a nobody. Or worse, they would have done nothing, leaving the manager and the fans completely betrayed. But this is where the story turns. This is the climax. Out of the ashes of that failure, the club didn't just find an alternative, they found an upgrade. They made a frantic last-ditch pivot. The source material confirms that Forest had to submit a deal sheet before the 7 p.m. deadline, a special provision that grants a little extra time to finalize the paperwork. That detail alone tells you how close to the wire this was. They used that extra time not to salvage the Galán deal, but to construct an entirely new one for a better player. It was a stunning act of improvisation under the most intense pressure imaginable. So let me ask you a direct question. Knowing the full story now, are you actually glad the Javi Galán deal collapsed? Did we inadvertently dodge a bullet and end up landing a missile instead? Get in the comments and tell me your honest gut feeling. The chaos of that moment was terrifying. But while that defensive fire was being put out, another even bigger fire was being lit in the club's accounting department. You would think, after the emotional roller coaster of a failed deal and a last-second superstar loan signing, that the club would call it a day. You'd think the checkbook would be firmly closed. You would be wrong. So very wrong. Because away from the defensive drama, in a parallel negotiation, Forest were finalizing the single most expensive piece of business of their entire summer. This wasn't a loan. This wasn't a stopgap. This was a massive, long-term, high-stakes investment in the future of our attack. A huge statement of financial intent. Nottingham Forest have completed the signing of winger Delaine Bakwa from the French club Strasbourg, and the numbers involved are staggering. The reports state the package is worth $35 million, including add-ons. That is an enormous fee. And to back it up, the player has been signed to a 5-year contract, a deal that runs all the way through to 2030. This is not a short-term fix. This is the club identifying a 23-year-old talent and betting the house that he will be a cornerstone of our team for years to come. Last season, he scored 5 goals in 30 appearances in League One, a tough physical league. He's a player with pace, with trickery, and clearly with a huge amount of potential that our scouts believe they can unlock. What makes this move even more fascinating is the context provided in the source material. It notes that Forest stepped up their interest in Bakwa in the direct aftermath of the dismal 3-0 defeat against West Ham. That is a crucial piece of information. This isn't just a signing, it's a reaction. It's the board watching a poor performance and immediately sanctioning a multi-million-pound move to fix it. That is the kind of proactive, aggressive ownership fans want to see. But it also brings immense pressure. A €35 million price tag weighs heavily on a young player's shoulders. He will be expected to deliver and deliver quickly. Where does he fit into Nuno's system? Who makes way for him? A signing of this magnitude will have ripple effects throughout the entire squad. But for now, it feels like pure optimism. It's a bet on the future. What do you think? A $35 million fee for a 23-year-old from Liga 1. Is it a masterstroke of scouting and a sign of our ambition, or is it an overpriced gamble? I need to know your thoughts. A man out. 2 massive names in. One born from chaos, the other by design. But what does the man who oversaw it all have to say? The architect has spoken. Deals are just numbers and names on a piece of paper. They only gain true meaning when the people in charge explain the vision behind them. After the smoke had cleared and the window had slammed shut, the club's chief football officer, the man responsible for our entire transfer strategy, stepped forward to put his name to the day's chaotic business. He broke his silence, and his words were calculated to project an image of strength, strategy, and control. I am talking, of course, about Ross Wilson. He went on the record, and his comments focused squarely on the signing that came out of the chaos, the Zinchenko deal. He said, and I quote, "Alex's pedigree speaks for itself. He was a big part of an extremely successful Manchester City team and played an important role for Arsenal in recent years." He continued, "He brings invaluable experience to Nottingham Forest. We are delighted he completes our incoming signings this summer. We are very confident he will have a big impact on and off the pitch." Let's dissect that. Pedigree, invaluable experience, big impact. This is the language of a club that wants to assure its fan base that everything is under control, that even the most chaotic looking moves are part of a grander plan. Wilson's statement is designed to frame the deadline day madness not as a scramble, but as a triumph. It's an attempt to retrospectively paint a picture of calm, calculated execution. And you know what? Maybe he's right. What does this day in its totality tell us about who Nottingham Forest are in this very moment? It tells me that we are not a club that will sit back and accept mediocrity. We are ambitious. We are aggressive. We are, yes, a little bit chaotic, but we are a club that will aim for a player from Atletico Madrid, and when that fails, we'll pivot and land an even bigger name from Arsenal. We are a club that will sanction a $35 million deal as a direct response to a bad performance. This is not the Nottingham Forest of old. This is a club that is fighting, kicking, and screaming to establish itself at the top table. It's a thrilling, if nerve-wracking, identity to have as a fan. If you have been on this absolute roller coaster with me from start to finish, you owe it to yourself to smash that like button. And head down to the comments and give me your final transfer window rating out of 10. And if you want to be the first to get stories like this, for the love of the tricky trees, subscribe to this channel right now. But as we close, we are left with two massive lingering questions that will define the rest of our season. With this level of investment and the arrival of these huge personalities, is Nuno Espirito Santo's job now safer than it has ever been? Or is he sitting on the hottest seat in the Premier League with absolutely no more excuses? And think about this. While we celebrate the new arrivals, what about the existing players who just saw their replacements walk through the door? We've heard a whisper from an inside source that one key player is already deeply unhappy with the situation and is considering his options for the January window. No, we will tell you exactly who that is in our next video. You do not want to miss it. Come on, you Reds.